Howdy, folks. Happy Monday, the first Monday of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And boy, am I glad to see them because there were some very exciting games and there was also a dog of a game, which we'll get to. And maybe I shouldn't use dog in a negative context with you, Russ.
I'm hitting Kaya as we speak.
Hey, okay, a cat of a game. No, but sorry. But anyway, Russ, start us off with the pre-show.
So on this date in 1986, the GTR album came out.
Ooh.
And so we're going to chat about that because I was super excited.
For those who don't know,
that's true.
The GTR album is the marriage of the two great progressive rock guitarists, Steve Hackett from Genesis and Steve Howe from Yes. And it was a pretty good album. What was it? When the Heart
Rules the Mind, The Hunter.
Right. They had a couple empty
3 or 4 really solid songs. And I remember I was going to go see them live and something happened. I've still never seen Hackett live as a result, but I will because I'll just go see him. But something happened, so I didn't get to go see him. And I think they did a second album, but they didn't tour for that one. Right. And then that was it. But there is a great live album that I have from King Biscuit Flower Hour for that. And it's really good. Like when you hear When the Heart Rules the Mind, you really hear the best of Howe and Hackett without walking over each other. Right. And that's hard to do when you have like two superstars in the field like that playing the same instrument. Very, very hard to do. The singer, I forget who the singer was, but the singer was pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to ask who it was. I wasn't sure. I'll look while you talk.
Look it up. I forget the name of the band, but the singer was from a guy with a little bit of a high-pitched voice, but it seemed to fit the music. But I remember when they were doing like press for this, it was actually nice to see that they were giving each other equal platitudes. Like as an example, I don't know if anybody remembers when Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth were trading places on stage and touring together. And I remember when and I think that was just solo for both of them. And I remember, Mike, when that came out, I remember saying, I wonder how long this tour is going to last because I can't see these guys continuing to be nice to each other. And I think it lasted like 10 shows. And I think it was like Hagar got tired of not opening enough for Roth. Like they didn't balance it out enough. So I think that ended the tour, right? And these guys didn't act like that. And that's what I appreciated.
Well, okay. Now, the lead singer was Max Bacon, who I've never heard before.
Yes.
Now, according to, and never let it be said that Wikipedia is always 100% correct, but I'll just read this. According to Hackett, by the end of the tour, the band was falling apart, and his dissatisfaction with both the music and financial management of GTR, as well as a failure to see eye to eye with Steve Howe, led to his beginning to question the project.
Well, that's fair. Listen, there is always a point where you're going to be at odds with Steve Howe, but it wasn't on the album, and it wasn't for most of the tour, like he said. And so I remember seeing a lot of great things, and that's why this live album is probably so good because it was probably this bickering happened at the end of the tour when they looked and said, we haven't made enough money on this.
Right. Never let it be said that or never get caught between Steve Howe and money.
Steve Howe will always get his money. That is the end game here is Steve will always get his money. And the problem is that in other bands, especially Yes with Steve, other artists were just willing to succumb to that to be able to just tour and not have to think about that. But that's a reason why guys like Bruford never hung around for long.
Right.
And because of all these inner workings that just annoy the crap out of them. But this was a good marriage. It wasn't a super group, but it was just like a good collaboration.
Now, speaking of guitarists sort of playing off each other, you know, I'm sure I'm one of many people who get in sort of the YouTube. You know, you start watching something on YouTube and then you just continue to watch YouTube surfing or whatever you call it. You're like you get caught in a vortex of YouTube. And a couple nights ago, I saw Eric Clapton on the Last Waltz from the band. And he does this song called Further On Up the Road. And him and Robbie Robertson trading back and forth. And it's fantastic. I mean, Robbie, you know, the band was the backing band for Dylan when he went electric. And they, you know, they had a ton of hits. And then like in the mid 70s, they had a farewell movie directed by Martin Scorsese and had a bunch of all-stars, including like everybody from Joni Mitchell, Dylan to Neil Diamond to Clapton.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just great watching that. And Clapton was just coming off heroin and cocaine, or coming off heroin and alcohol. And it looked apparently clean at that
Just another year for Eric Clapton.
Right. I mean, believe me, he went up and down. And the reason I bring up Clapton here is because he is raising some ire on social media today, because apparently in a letter to a British publication, he ripped the AstraZeneca vaccine. He got the AstraZeneca vaccine in February, and he had an adverse reaction to it, where he had numbness in his hands and feet for about 2 weeks, and then it subsided. And he was basically out there saying that, everybody's saying that this vaccine there's no problem with it, and, ripping on it. And people, of course, people were putting him into that category of, not anti-vaxxer, but,
he sounded a little bit like that, though.
Right. And he explained it away, and I won't read the letter or read the section letter, but it's like, but everybody's beating on Clapton. I was like, everybody's entitled to their opinion. He had an adverse reaction to it. If all of a sudden he had the vaccine, if he did it without taking the vaccine, or he had the vaccine and he had no problems and then was ripping on it, I think he'd be more of a hypocrite.
The only thing is, because you had an adverse reaction, you meaning Eric Clapton, doesn't mean you should say the vaccine stinks, because he may be the one in the 10,000 that it happens to, because no vaccine is perfect. But also, here's the other thing, Mike, and this is what we learned in the States here. If you had COVID at some point and then got the vaccine, you did come down with a problem for a while. I had a friend that happened to, and she found out, she indeed did have COVID and didn't know it. And that is something where then the vaccine, your body is then getting the vaccine and also trying to fight this off while it's in there. And that is probably what happened to him. And I don't think he bothered to, find out that was the case.
Yeah. And I have to say, though, I mean, we'll talk about the games. We'll talk about, some of the
stick to writing sad songs. Anyhow,
the on the ice stuff. But I have to say, it was stark how different the games were, especially the one in Florida, where it was 9,000 people.
Yes.
I mean, the reaction of the crowd was just really, I mean, you didn't realize how much you missed the crowd interaction until you saw that.
Although the teams are better too, so it's hard to say it was just because of the crowd.
Right. Well, no, I mean, let's just say the crowd in Vegas got a nice rest, because there was nothing to cheer about in that friggin' game.
Well, and we even got the guy who did the horn wrong. It was Gene Simmons. We didn't go Gene Simmons.
Did he crank it with his tongue?
But he did crank it. He looked in better shape cranking it than Wayne Newton, but Wayne Newton's probably 15 years older than Gene Simmons.
See, it would have been better if he had his wife crank it. Shannon Tweet.
David Copperfield, I went too young. I get that, Mike. I went too young with David Copperfield.
David Blaine? You should have been David Blaine?
No. I went too young with Copperfield because he's probably 50-something, but Gene Simmons is like 70. Wayne Newton's even older than that. So I think they just want to get the old guys doing it and seeing if they, if they can make it through, like an endurance test.
Yeah, but Gene's been powerlifting. He's been lifting those royalty checks for a long time.
Yeah, he's another guy that never misses a royalty check.
No, negatory. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, May 17th, 2021.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, we'll start in chronological order. We'll start with the game on Saturday. Ack will be joining us in a minute here. Let's start with – or 10. Let's start with the Boston-Washington game. Now, I have to say, this game, I was a little disappointed at the game simply because, and Bruce Cassidy said this after the game, the big guys for the Bruins simply did not show up.
I think they had trouble ramping it up, Mike. I think I had just seen Boston, maybe 3 weeks ago live here in Philly, somewhere around that time frame. And I saw the same game that I saw out of that top line 3 weeks ago. It just seemed like they had trouble ramping it up. And they had gotten a break with Craig Anderson being in net. Because if you really did watch Craig Anderson, to me, he looked slow post to post. And there was that one puck that was just sitting on the line, and he had no idea where it was. And he was practically falling down doing it. And they just didn't cash in on that, right? And so I just felt like you needed to do some wraparounds. You needed to have more traffic in front. And they didn't do that. They really sort of let Craig Anderson and the Caps off the hook on this one. And the only thing I could say is I don't think they were able to ramp it up enough. So, that's my guess.
Now, for people, some people didn't see it. Tom Wilson scores the opening goal. And off a faceoff, Jake DeBrusk ties it. It was an odd play where it got pushed off the faceoff, where DeBrusk was basically in the slot. Vanacek was late in recognizing where the puck was and lunged for the puck when he saw DeBrusk shooting, and in an awkward manner. And I'm no doctor. I would be surprised if Vanacek plays again, because
I would agree with that.
He was either torn groin, pulled groin, or stomach muscle, because it was an odd kick out. And this is and we'll get back to the game in a second. But this is the odd thing for Washington right now. Samsonov is on the COVID protocol list.
Yeah.
So now Craig Anderson, who's 39, I believe.
I think he was going to be 40 this Friday.
Yeah. So he's 39 for a couple more days. He comes in cold. Their backup is Phoenix Copley, and they call
okay. He's okay.
He's had NHL games, and Zach Fucale is now their number 3.
They never want to see Zach Fucale there. No offense to Zach. He just never developed that enough for that.
Right. Now, we don't know when Samsonov comes back. So, I mean, this is
Boston has to take advantage.
Yeah, this is a dire situation for Washington. But like you said, I mean, I was expecting, I hear Van checks out, he leaves the ice, and Anderson comes in, who's played, I think, 2 games all year. I'm like, oh, they're going to pummel him with shots. They didn't.
What did Taylor Hall do? I want to know. I was trying to find out how Taylor Hall did. How did he do in this game, Mike? Tell me how Taylor Hall did in this game. How did he do, Mike?
He didn't do anything, but it's one game.
He was a minus. He was there for 2 goals.
It's one friggin' game.
Okay, but again, for all the people that are like, based on the short window that they saw of him in the regular season, like, they got to sign Taylor Hall, hold off on that, because Taylor Hall is not exactly, even in his best days, the best playoff performer. He's not.
Russ, in terms of fellow travelers, in terms of guys who didn't show up, add the names Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak.
But those guys, you have more of an idea will show up.
I agree, but I'm just saying they didn't show up. And Eck, I'll bring you in on this.
Eck showed up. Give him credit for that.
Yeah, barely, but yes.
But Eck, this is the thing. Alex Ovechkin, great trains David Krejci, leaves his feet.
Yeah.
Not even a minor penalty. Nothing gets mentioned from the league. Again,
I know.
That was embarrassing for the league. It was.
Yeah, I mean, there was Crosby did something yesterday too. Yeah, no, I mean that.
You know they can do it. You know how sometimes guys will do it and they'll sort of look back at the ref to see if they're getting a call. They don't even look back anymore because they know nothing's going to be called.
Yeah. No, I know that there. I mean, there's definitely the league has to examine itself this summer, and hopefully they will. If they don't, then we've got some serious issues going on here. Because but let's. So have you gotten into the games yet, or are you just getting there now?
This is it.
Okay. All right, we're starting with this game. Okay, good. Because obviously, can we all agree that this was like the best 4 opening games we've ever had in the playoffs? I mean, this is just like,
we'll give the 3.
What game wasn't good?
The Vegas game wasn't great.
Oh, I don't know. I disagree. I really.
It was some good saves, Zach, but I think you're setting the bar low for that one. They all were overtime the first 3, which was fantastic. I get that, but I don't think that was a great game.
I mean, the one that wasn't overtime was probably the best one. I mean, that was like, that game was insane last night.
That was a great game.
But I mean, listen, that is how Minnesota's gonna have to play, right? And that's and
right, but that game was dreadful. Like, yeah, but let's not go to that game, right? Let's finish.
Okay, let's start with Boston, and let's start with Boston and Washington. When you guys were starting there, and a little bit.
When you get your take, I pretty much,
my take on that game was, again, I do give credit to Laviolette, for having his team prepared. Like, there's no question about it that this is where a good coach matters a lot. You saw it in this game. Like, he was ready. He has played. I forget a lot. You got to forget Laviolette. Last time he played Boston was, right or wrong, was when he came back from 3-0 with the Flyers against Boston. He has a thing with Boston. He's good with Boston. And I think, and there's just Boston's a very specific kind of game. You have to play a very certain way to beat them. And I think he had them doing it. Like, if I felt like I'm doing it, the goaltending situation was crazy. And that, to me, that's why as this series goes on, I mean, Washington, it's just like, but then I'm reminded again of Laviolette's run in the playoffs, like before with like the goalies that he was using, remember, with the Flyers, which got to the point
that goalie wasn't 40, and this goalie is visibly slow in the net, and Boston didn't take care of it.
Not only was he visibly slow, did you get the impression he was not healthy? Like, when I was watching him,
I didn't get that impression, but I could tell. Knowing, I've watched Craig Anderson enough over the years. Yeah. His post to post compared to like other goalies in the league is slow.
He came in cold, and I think he was slow early, but then after, I'd say into the third period, he was better.
And I think he will be better as it goes along here if he has to play more. We still don't know what's going to happen. But
they say he's going to start game 2.
Well, yeah, he'll be in here for game 2. After that, hopefully Samsonov will be back.
Well, no. Well, maybe. But
did they say no?
Before someone says it, I didn't see when Lester Patrick played at the age of 40, so don't go there.
No, but the odd thing, and I want to touch on something with Boston, but the odd thing, Kuznetsov is back off the COVID protocol, and he's skating as an extra skater. So all this stuff about Kuznetsov being gone at the end of the year, it sounds like, I mean, I would be shocked if he doesn't get back in the lineup, and maybe
he'll get in the lineup, but I think
doesn't mean he won't be gone. It doesn't mean he won't be gone.
Here's the one thing I've learned about Ted Leonsis after chatting with him a couple of times over the years. I feel like he's gone over the line for what Ted Leonsis is comfortable for, and I think Leonsis will ask them to get rid of him.
Yeah, I do agree. Ted actually has a lot of character to him. Honestly, he is a guy of high character. I've dealt with him a lot, talked to him a lot individually, been out with him a couple times for dinner. He's really one of these guys. He's very, very high, a guy I hold in really high esteem as far as, But that doesn't mean he's not going to use him. He's an asset. He's going to use, like, right now.
I don't know.
They'll use him.
They're skating him as an extra skater, not as on one of the lines.
Yeah, but if somebody gets hurt, Kuznetsov's going to be in there.
But Russ, I mean, the guy's your number 2 center. I mean, he should be. If he's back, he should be back. But if he's not back, that's.
It just shows you how far he's dropped as far as what they think of him.
And also where Laviolette is happy with what he has. Like, that's the thing. Like, Laviolette doesn't care if this guy has scored 50 or 1,000 goals in his career. I mean, and look at like Minnesota scratching Parise, the same kind of thing there.
That also calls into question the Vrana trade, because if they're going to trade Kuznetsov, they should have kept Vrana. But
no, but that's a salary thing. They weren't going to be able to pay Vrana.
I think they're pretty speciously connected. I really don't think you have anything there.
But here's that Mantha. We can't forget that. That's a good.
Here's the thing I wanted to mention. Here's the thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Bruins fans, you are a bunch of idiots. if you are blaming Tuukka Rask for that loss, the Nick Dowd shot was deflected twice.
Yeah.
If you are blaming, I mean, it's like a reflex action. It's like Tuukka Rask is at fault. I cannot wait, Bruins fan, until Tuukka Rask either goes to another team or retires, and you have to have average goaltending, and you get screwed because
Mike can tell you all about giving up on Tuukka Rask early, and Mike can give you that one. You know all about that, Mike. I mean, like,
no, but you know what?
I'm just saying that the Leafs had Rask, right, and they moved him.
Yes, but I could see they never really had him. They just drafted him.
Okay, just to get the record. Yeah. Jeff Gorton was the interim general manager in Boston.
Yeah.
Right.
John Ferguson was the general manager in Toronto. Ferguson wanted Andrew Raycroft. He gave Gorton the option, either Justin Pogge or Tuukka Rask. And
then they gave up on him. I mean,
the rest is history.
That is giving up on him, in my opinion. I mean, that's funny that you can't possibly say that means it's okay that he did that. I didn't give him up. He took him.
at that point, you had two goaltenders who were stars in the world.
No. Hold on. That minute that trade was made, I was screaming it was a huge mistake because Rask, not only did Justin Pogge win the gold medal, but Rask was not only the best goalie in the World Juniors, he was the best by far.
But this is the reason why most Leaf fans hate John Ferguson Jr. with passion, because he could have gotten him for Justin Pogge, but instead he gave Boston the option, and for the last 15 years we've had to deal with it.
Just shows that Gordon is smart. But Eck, when I saw the post game,
who does that though? Who gives an option in a trade like
that? John Ferguson.
I mean, what's the point? What's the point besides like, making you not I guess you're no longer responsible. I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Eck, here's the issue though. Post game, right?
Yeah.
Tuukka Rask, you could read it on his face, was dreading for when the question was going to come up, and he had to talk about the goal, and he was honest about it. He goes, "Look, I didn't even see it. It was one of those things. You know how you say, I throw something to you and you say, think fast, and you might catch it 1 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the timing you have to make that save. But the idea is he is so worn down by the questions from the fan base. It doesn't affect his play because he can block it out. But you could see he is tired of post games, answering to a lot of this fan base that just feels like everything's his fault. And I'm telling you, that is why he will either leave or retire. And I think he's going to retire. I don't have any inside information. This is a gut feeling. I think he's tired of it.
I mean, but I think I don't think he should retire. I think he should. I shouldn't think
he may not. He may not
go to Seattle or something like that. Honestly, like if I was him, I would say like move me to Seattle. Like kind of remember what Marc-Andre Fleury's situation was. When he got to Seattle was sort of along those lines. It's like there's no question that the Bruins fans are in love with their backup. They
always are, and especially if he's a college goalie. My God.
Yeah, well, everybody is like the idea of like people always love the backup. They always love the backup quarterbacks. But they realize that there's a reason these guys aren't playing at the end of the day. And yes, this kid they have is going to be a great goalie, perhaps, or could be a good goalie and had a really good start, but he's not ready to put him into this spot right here. And you've got one of the best goalies in the league in Tuukka Rask. And if you don't realize that, I mean, gosh, that goal you can't do anything about. That's like a double deflection, like you said. Seeing eye goal. It's what it was. I mean, it found its way through, and that's what happens. I mean, I thought the game, I was impressed with how physical the Capitals came out. And I know they were, like we talked about, they were definitely, the couple of the hits were a little bit questionable, but I was impressed with how physical they decided they were going to be. And to me, it was two teams. And what I liked about this, and when I wrote about it, I'm like, this is two teams that know how to win and aren't afraid of playoffs. These are two teams that are okay with being in both these teams have done a lot, like they've already done a lot. A lot of players have already won cups on both those teams. It's like, this is about, they know what they need to do and they're going out there and they're doing it. And part of what you need to do is like, just hit or be hit type mentality, which I think is really what I liked. I think that I thought the Capitals, that was the most physical I've seen the Capitals by far this year. Like, I mean, like Capitals were not physical at all when they played the Flyers. At least I didn't see this physicality at all.
I don't think the Caps took it to them. I don't think this was a game where we said, "Wow, I'm so impressed with the Capitals the way they took it to the Bruins." Yeah. I think what happened was the Bruins got settled into that game and felt like they were going to do what they've been doing in the regular season and win it late. And when that didn't happen, they realized that's probably the wrong way to play against this team.
Well, I mean, there was some physicality there apparently, you saw the Tom Wilson, Jeremy Lawson situation. Lawson's not going to be in the next game. I think he got hurt. They're putting Connor Clifton in place of him. So I mean, that takes away a little bit. I mean, Lawson's a big kid.
Remember, Lawson also has a jerkish kind of attitude the same way Wilson does.
Right.
And that's what teams want, that kind of guy. I get it. That's why I had him higher than a lot of them in the draft, because I knew he would make it to the NHL and I knew he would be a jerk in the NHL. But again, it's not like it's unwarranted just because, Wilson hit somebody. I don't always want to blame it on Tom Wilson.
No. And Quinn and if you noticed, they did not have Trent Frederick in the lineup.
Yes.
So the neutralizer when it comes to Tom Wilson was not in there.
That doesn't mean he won't be in there.
No. I think he could be. And if Wilson starts to run amok, then I think it's very. I mean, I don't know who could handle him. I'm not talking about in a fight, but it's like you want somebody. If Wilson starts going banana sandwich on you, and you need somebody to respond in kind. I don't think Curtis Lazar or Nick Ritchie are going to do it.
I do. When we move on to another series, though, I want to point out a flaw that I'm seeing with certain teams in the playoffs, and we'll see if you guys agree or not.
Okay. Before we do, you want to move on, or when after we move on?
Yeah, I mean, so if you want to do the Vegas game, I'll point out the flaw.
All right,
let's go there right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I need a rest.
So with Vegas, the flaw that I see is the flaw that I thought was there, and that is they're slow, they're big, but the problem is a lot of teams, the way they've gone past this, is they have somebody fast at least in the bottom six, so that if you give up a goal and it's a tie game, whatever, you can put that guy in the ice, and we'll talk about this in another series, and that guy will cause some problems on that immediate first shift because he's a matchup problem. There is nobody like that on Vegas. Matter of fact, when you have guys like Nicholas Waugh, it's great that you've got size in some of these younger players, but they're slow. And it is not helping them because they're not great transitionally defensively anyhow. And if you notice, it's not like Pietrangelo is a burner either. He's doing a lot of his stuff with longer range passing and everything else, and they just look too slow.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to lose the series, but I'm saying this is easier to match up against them for some team.
Which is surprising because that's, obviously they weren't that way under Gallant, in a lot of ways.
No, they weren't. But
they've gotten slower and they've gotten bigger. To me, what killed them was what kills a lot of teams, and that's the reaction to something by overreacting to it in a huge way. They got to the Stanley Cup Finals as an incredible story, right? And then they got manhandled by the Capitals because the Capitals are playing that Eastern Division, old Capitals, whatever, Patrick Division hockey, which is they got out physicaled, and so therefore they decided they weren't going to be small, and they really went way overboard, I thought, in thinking that they went away from there, okay, we're going to play fast to be we don't want to be out physicaled, to me that they just
well the funny thing is, I think they got out physicaled against Dallas last year, and
I think they kind of did yesterday too. And I honestly feel like what I really liked about yesterday was Evason's. He obviously watched all those Dallas teams, that in the bubble. They played the same game that the Stars played against them in the playoffs.
But
the Wild don't have finishers like Dallas did last year.
No, they don't. So it puts them in a spot where they have to win games like they won it.
Kaprizov had a good game, but they, essentially kept him from the highest scoring areas.
And this is the thing, I'm an old time hockey fan. I like if it's an entertaining 1-0 victory, I'm all for it. This game was, Fleury made some fantastic saves. So did Talbot. And it's a game that didn't really capture, the game we're going to talk about, Florida, Tampa Bay, that captured my excitement, and it was 5-4. But if that was 1-0, I still would have been excited by it. This game had lulls. There were some good saves. There were some good moments, but it wasn't tension filled throughout. And I think Russ, one thing Russ said to me earlier, and I really agree with it. If you expect Cam Talbot to play like this
every game,
that was shocking.
It's not him.
That was the best Cam Talbot since the Rangers that I
that really blew my mind. That was just because I'm not a Talbot fan necessarily. I mean, I have been at times, like you said, he was a great backup with the Rangers, but I didn't necessarily think he was. I didn't like this move. It was the only thing that Guerin did that kind of baffled me. But yesterday, geez, I mean, he's not gonna play like that all the time, but you might not need to play like that to win. I mean, I thought, some of the Fleury saves though, at least from a goalie's perspective.
They were amazing.
One of the best games I've seen a goalie play and lose in the playoffs in a long time. He played out of his friggin' mind, and makes you wonder, if he plays last year against Dallas, and Vegas, maybe Vegas goes on to win to play Tampa. To me, that's it's clear as day. If he plays that way, but that's an insane Marc-Andre Fleury, and for his age and everything, what he's doing, he's just literally at the top of his game, which is insane.
He's still great, and
that's insane. At his age, it's insane. He's at the top of his game for a goalie.
Well, we'll see. I mean, this is game one. We don't know how he'll hold up for a whole series.
Right. That's the nice thing is that they got Leonard warming up in the bullpen. If that's the case,
and they're lucky that way. They really are lucky that way. The decision not to play Parise was interesting. To scratch him.
I guess he's either banged up or at this point. Well, they could say that. I mean,
If he's
Well, why wouldn't they? No, I mean that to me, you never lie that direction, right? Like you rather say he's banged up than say he's healthy.
All right, so let me ask you
is a bold thing to say.
Okay, but let me ask you this. So if you're Dean Evison, do you want to say he's healthy, or do you want to say he doesn't play at the pace I need this team to play at right now? Like, that's worse, but that's probably the reality.
Well, no, but he's not either or in that situation. He said both of those things, Russ. He said he's healthy and he doesn't play at the pace that I want.
He did say that?
No, he didn't say it, but by scratching him, that's what he's saying.
He's not saying that, though.
But by scratching him, that's what he's saying. So it's not, to me, that has nothing to do with injured or not. Like I would rather say he's banged up a little bit, and therefore you can imply that he can't play at that speed or whatever.
Or he's trying to piss him off and then put him in.
Well, that might be it. I mean, that to me, it's way more of a thing along those lines than anything else. Especially, just because.
Especially if you're trying to trade him like you did last year.
I mean, I think they're giving up on that.
You want to use every excuse and the thing is, I just looked it up for giggles. In terms of buying him out, he's got 4 years left. There's literally no cap saving in 3 of the 4 years because it's all signing.
Yeah, no, I know. He's I mean, they're stuck with that that's like the last contract that was signed before things kind of changed the way you can sign contracts. So
yeah, it's a shame. I mean, he was a heck of a player, but you knew that there was going to be a time it would run out for him, and we might be
still a great leader. So to me, like him not being on that team in that game yesterday, that sends a message to your team.
Well, you still have Ryan Suter there, and he's a big time leader.
Yeah, but it sends a message, though. There's no question about it. I mean, they've really gone overboard to make this team have a new character to it. And the one thing I'll say about Parise and Suter, and I've talked to other people about this before, and I don't know if you've ever seen it covering them in different situations, Russ, but in international play at least. They can both tend towards negativity. Mm-hmm. They can both be a little bit like when things aren't going well.
I think Parise especially. I've seen that.
Yeah, you've seen it, right? It's like you can see when things aren't going well. I mean, I saw with Suter in Nashville. I've seen Parise in New Jersey too. They're not exactly like the hip hip hooray type character.
No, that's true. I saw it more with Parise for sure, but I've seen it. Yeah.
And USA always had an issue with that actually, and Burke had an issue with that. I know in Team USA, like sometimes putting Parise in there and giving him such a big role because he's obviously a great lead. What he does on the ice is unquestionable. Like back then, at least like in 2010, for example. Yeah. But it's still like if things weren't going well, he was not.
Well, maybe Zach Parise comes up with the same skin infection that Marian Hossa does, and that's how they get out of the last 4 years, at least the cap hit of the last 4 years.
Yeah. I just want to say what's a potential problem too for Minnesota because they were fortunate winning that game, like anybody else is. Once it gets to overtime, anything can happen.
Yeah,
but I did feel like some players were standing around and also waiting for Kaprizov to make something happen. And that's a problem when you're in the playoffs and you're depending on a rookie, no matter the age of the rookie. He's still new to this league.
He is new. Although, have we ever seen a performance like that out of Ryan Hartman before? Like that? I mean, he was just.
Yes, actually, I have.
Yeah.
But I think he's been neutralized in different roles over the years. Yeah. But if you give Ryan Hartman can play a variety of roles. He was an offensive player in juniors, a very offensive player. But teams like this toughness. And so that he got pushed into that bottom six role no matter what. I'm not shocked that I've seen that out of Ryan Hartman because he's done that in his career. He just hasn't done it lately.
And this is the one thing that may be unfortunate for Vegas. And I still think they're going to win the series, but that size advantage, that boning up to have big players, that is not really going to have much of an effect against Minnesota when they have Greenway and Foligno. They have size. They have toughness. They're not going to be intimidated by that. Bukestad, yeah, exactly. So they have size. They have size. So it's like
those guys can skate too. Bukestad not so much. Greenway can skate. Like they have guys that are big but are mobile.
Yeah. And there's definitely also the the whole thing with was it Nosek, right? Who they lost. Nosek was a wild player, right? Before he went to Vegas. And there was a lot of talk. I was driving around yesterday a little bit during this game, and I was listening to the Minnesota Wild broadcast on the radio, and they kept mentioning that over and over again. Like there's like you're never gonna justify what you did. Nosek's a hell of a player. They never should have let him go. But at the end of the day, there was like this incredible we getting them back. We're winning. It's like, oh my gosh, for the Nosek trade. For Thomas Nosek, it's just bizarre to me. Moving on then to let's go to Pittsburgh and the Islanders first. And let's go there first. This is this was kind of the ultimate fear of the Penguins in a lot of ways of coming true. Like the goaltending in this game. This is where the goaltending let a team down. Yes, over the weekend.
Yeah, no question.
I think the goaltending let both teams down. Really,
I do. There was one that definitely Sorokin would want back.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. The goal that made it, I think, was 3-2 in the third period, late in the third period, was a dagger. Was like, okay, that's a goal that normally kills a team. And I thought Sorokin.
The weird part, Mike, just to get on that goal, the weird part about that goal was his glove was so close to it. If he actually would have just been holding it in a better position, it wasn't like that thing was sailing top corner and there's no way of stopping it. Yeah. It was really close to that.
Yeah, and then the Penguins come right back down with the Carter. I think it's Carter, Tanev, and Kapanen line, and Kapanen ties the game. And all the momentum, all the momentum of that go-ahead goal late in the third was gone. Yeah. Now, I agree, Jari did not have a good game, but I didn't think Sorokin was anything, special either. So
to give Sorokin first of all, obviously being thrust into that spot kind of last minute. And then also being put into a situation where, the nerves were there. You could see the nerves were there for him. He's been pretty solid. I expect that he'll come back and be very strong.
The weird part was one-on-one and around the net. Jari was great, and then he was horrible with the glove stuff. And I do feel like they could tinker with that a little bit and get like that last goal. Nobody could get anything about. Palmieri scores that 1 out of every 10 times.
Yeah, the Islanders have Palmieri. Palmieri's very good and scores those goals that Palmieri scored. That was a crazy goal, obviously overtime goal, but. Yeah. The Islanders have some guys that are very good at shifting, at pulling the puck in or moving it out, like shifting the angle you're shooting from. You can see that happening in that game, because if a goalie comes out and sets on his angle and isn't ready for that move, which Matthews is the best at in the league by far, but that move that you go out there, then you're going to get beaten like he was getting beaten on things, and then he tends to trust his angle. There's one thing about going out and trusting your angle in the big time, but there's another thing about I'm on the angle, so I don't have to worry about anything type thing. That's where he ran into issues. I felt like.
Yeah. Here's the worry if you're an Islander fan. I don't think the Islanders outplayed the Penguins. I don't. No. Because again, the Penguins were without Malkin and they didn't get great goaltending. They overcame that. Now, what I was talking about when you could put out a fast guy when you're behind, like Kapanen neutralized that game in a second. 30 seconds later. He got right behind the defense and scored, and that is something where you add Malkin to that team. I also feel like Trotz still wore those guys out. Did you notice late in the second period they were heaving, man?
Oh yeah, they were tired. The Penguins decided they were going to try to outskate them, right? Which is what they've been doing this year, and that is an exhausting game to play if you don't, unless you're in perfect positioning, and sometimes even then it won't matter because the Penguins are used to people trapping against them, so they're playing it. They've never played a game where they weren't being trapped against. So
the thing where I thought was hurting the Islanders that way, and Jonesy made a good point of the puck retrieval on the power play. Yeah, that's great, but you still have to score, right? If you don't score, the puck retrieval doesn't mean anything. But what the puck retrieval does do is it does exhaust the penalty killers, and some of those guys are on your regular lines too. And I felt like the Islanders normally played, at least the games I've seen, with less movement on the penalty kill than that, and they had to move around a lot more, and I think that was a factor too.
They did. I agree. And I felt like, some of the Sorokin stuff that I was seeing, that he was overcommitting to certain plays, which is definitely a nervousness. That's like something that Fleury has done in the past. We've seen Fleury do, and like Pekka Rinne, where we talk about these goalies that the one goal that was a deflection, pretty far out deflection. Was it? I can't remember who got the goal, but it was pretty much. It ended up going on past him.
Yeah. I know the goal. I can't remember who.
He was way to his left because it was like a flip in shot that he just thought he was going to glove it, and it's the kind of thing that he didn't even have to glove it because it was going to go wide. So he's way to his left, and that's way overcommitting. So that when that deflects back, it wasn't like a super fast deflection that he shouldn't be able to get to, but he was too far away from it. So
Rogan's got to watch his rebound control. That's something where down low he almost paid for that.
Yeah.
The questions with this series, injuries, we don't really have an extent on what is wrong with Varlamov. So
I do. Andrew Burrows about a week and a half ago said that, and if I remember this correctly, the Islanders were resting Varlamov because he had like a tweak of the knee. And I think that's still the injury that's bothering him.
Yeah, and Malkin didn't play in game one, but I just saw some video of him at the practice facility in Pittsburgh. He's having Colton Sevier hit him into the boards. So he must be testing out some
He
sort
looked really good in like the pregame skate. Like, did they show the videos and stuff like that? I was like, what the heck? He looked fine. Like, it was.
You know what it was? I explained this to Mike offline. Covering the Penguins as much as I have over the years, because they've been in the playoffs, I've been to like different game sevens and the cup and all these. With Sullivan, I think they were just playing it safe with Malkin because they expect this to be a long series, and they've won long series before. So why put Malkin out there in game one if you're a little unsure because you feel like you're going to be in the series the whole time? And I think, honestly, that's the mentality.
It's okay until you're down 1-0, right? And then that immediately changes everything. Like it's very crazy how it's like you can say it's going to be a long series, but
if they had won game one, then Malkin probably wouldn't play because they
then you don't play him.
Yeah, he wouldn't play if they had won that game. I agree, he wouldn't be playing.
And Dumoulin missed. He blocked a shot in the third period of the game, and he missed practice. But it's
a Ryan Pulick shot. So that's why.
Right off the ankle.
You can't blame him for that. That's no question. I mean, it's
100 miles an hour.
There's another thing I kind of noticed in general about this, and I didn't take it into account when I was making my predictions until later, which is funny because I don't know if I changed any of my picks at all, but because I made the predictions on the show on Friday, but then yesterday, and I went with the same thing I went with I went with Boston, I went with the Islanders, and then I went with
Toronto.
I went with what was that?
Toronto.
No, but I'm not talking about those games. The games so far that we predict, the games that we picked so far. So I went and I went with that. And then I went with Minnesota, and I went with what's it called? And I went with Florida. And I went with Florida, right? So that was my. So I think those are the same things I did, but I was torn between Minnesota and Vegas, going back and forth. And what occurred to me in watching the game, that just even that first game, was how much different the playoffs are this year with these teams knowing each other so crazy well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I didn't take that into account in my predictions as much as I should have. Like,
that's a fair point.
There is something different about the playoffs than there usually is. Like, usually, you play that cross game or whatever, and you have that team you have hardly ever seen. But even if you're just playing somebody in your division, you're not playing them 10 times or 8 times. It's like, this is like, and having played them so often, so recently, all of these, they've all played recently.
Well,
it's crazy.
Well, I mean, okay, in the 3 American divisions, the teams played each other 8 times. Just think if you're in the North Division and you played, like, for example, Toronto-Montreal played 10 times and played 4 times in a row as recently as a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think they, like I think it was Dominic Moore said on the NBC broadcast, they know what mouthwash each one was using.
Oh, they do, and that is something that is it definitely neutralizes things. It definitely brings the teams closer together and makes that's. I think the reason we're going to see a lot of overtime games is has to do with this. I think that the difference between teams is definitely minimized when they're so used to each other. Because there's just more coaching can get involved, more line matching, more how do we stop this? What do we do right that worked for us? What did we do wrong that didn't work for us? They know everything that they could possibly know about these teams they're playing against. So that leads itself towards a lot of close games and a lot of overtime games, which is why when you saw the first 3 games go to overtime, I'm thinking to myself, that probably makes more sense. I shouldn't.
And I'm going to say this, Zach, and I was legitimately shocked. Mike Matheson actually had a decent game.
Yeah, he did. He did have a decent game, and he's got we know he's got abilities.
Sullivan's having some sort of good effect on him.
Yeah. All right, then now let's go to Florida, Tampa, which was just a barn burner of a game.
Yeah,
I mean they can't. First of all, if that first period of that game was insane to the point where there's no way they could have kept it up, and they didn't.
No,
I mean
they
fell back, but my gosh, even falling back, I mean. Every stoppage there was a fight. There's always that's the crazy thing. That's when things are really good. Like the smallest of like the goalie freezes the puck for a second. It's always happening.
Yeah. After the whistle stuff.
After whistle constantly. And I thought Boucher, I think it was mentioned that he thought the refs did a good job, and I agree that they did a good job.
I disagree with Boucher, and I love him, but I disagree because again, the same way you felt it Florida got jobbed on that goal.
Oh, they did. No, there were some big overall. I'm just saying.
Well, that's a big thing because that was a big momentum shift for Tampa.
Oh, no, that's a huge momentum shift.
They literally scored like 10 seconds later.
I know.
The issue that I had with that was if you're telling me the push on his pad hurt him being in goal, how is he able to make the first save? No problem.
Exactly.
Like, how strong his legs are. Like, come on.
I mean, Vasilevsky made a mistake on if a goalie makes a mistake, it shouldn't, just a legitimate mistake. Like he does not grab the puck when he has a chance to. Like he could have easily frozen the puck.
No force behind that push of the pad. Nothing.
None at all. And it was devastating because, like you said, the Tampa comes back and scores right away.
Yeah,
that was just one of those moments. Like, oh
now,
my
granted,
God.
I also think the Panthers exhaled, and Tampa saw that opening. It was like bing, bing, goal. And unfortunately, this is the problem for Florida. They have to put in twice the effort to stay in the games against Tampa, because when Tampa rolls those 4 lines, Florida can't roll 4 good lines, and Florida's defense without Ekblad is just not up to the task.
And that's the big word right there, Ekblad, because in this game, I mean, you are literally playing against like maybe the best team in the NHL when you bring Kucherov back into things. It's like they and they won the Stanley Cup. I mean, this is not like a secret that they're the best team in the NHL.
I said this to Russ earlier, and I don't think it'll happen, but I can see at the next general managers meeting or the next board of governors meeting, somebody coming up and saying, we cannot allow these players who sit out the entire year to come back off LTIR, and will point to Kucherov. And I'm like, you know what? You've got a flat cap right now. And if you have to jimmy things a little bit, I'm sorry, you have to allow it. It happened with Patrick Kane a few years ago with Chicago. It happened this year. It was
wrong then. It's wrong now. I mean, it's still wrong.
Well, but no, it wasn't wrong then because the league didn't have a problem with it.
It's not illegal. We've talked about
right, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Now, I loved the physicality in this series so far in Game 1. But it got a little cheap. But the NHL has a meeting with Sam Bennett for the hit on Coleman. Now
which I don't see why.
Honestly. I don't see why, but here this is the reason why. Coleman hits Barkov, no call.
Yeah.
Right.
Bennett hits Coleman, retribution.
And there was a play.
That is the cause of it. You're
right. Or who was what's what's his name? Shoot.
Who? What?
The Tampa Russian defenseman. I'm just losing my mind for a second.
Sergachev.
Sergachev. I mean, the he flattened somebody from behind in the boards and doesn't get a penalty called at all. Like that happened. Like in the second period, that was brutal. It was a brutal hit.
And they went after Sergachev later in the game too.
And that should have been a suspension right there too. I mean, you're talking. Yeah. I mean, there to me. I'm not saying the refereeing was perfect, but it was a really intense game, and I like the fact.
Yeah, I just didn't think the refereeing was great, but I don't think it cost the game. I think Florida's on the right track. I just don't think they have the horses in this. And look, I told this to Mike. This is as good as Bob can play right now. He's not going to play any better than that.
And that's the big question about this, because to me, that's the big question from yesterday's game. Like Bob did play very well yesterday, and they made some big saves. And that playing against Tampa, that's a monumental task.
It's not good enough, though.
But he might not be good enough. And and Drager might not be either, to be honest.
He might not be, but they may have to make the switch to C.
Yeah.
They will, I think. I really think they will.
If you're this will be, I'm sure, a very popular opinion. If you're talking about a goaltender that cost his team a victory, I opt more for Bobrovsky than I do for Tristan Jarry.
I didn't feel that way about Bob, Mike. I felt that way about Jarry, though.
No, Jarry let in a lot of bad goals. Bobrovsky
I thought the game-winning goal to point was terrible.
No, that's point on a breakaway. Like, what are you gonna? It's not the best.
How about that? You're making $10 million. Stop the friggin' puck.
Well, I will say this: when a player's on the breakaway
earlier in the game,
but we do have to admit, when the player's on the breakaway, the goalie does have the edge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, he does, and he opened up his legs. But point. The thing that Point did well on that breakaway, which is what not enough players do in shootouts, is Point came in full speed. And that's
a lot of speed. He's fast, man.
Point's fast. And Point makes little tiny quick moves with his stick handling. So it's like he makes the slightest move to open up his legs and put it back in there. That was a really, yes, I'm not saying that, you don't want your goalie to make that save. And if you're going to win a Stanley Cup, your goalie's going to have to make those saves for sure at times. But he did make saves on like 3 other breakaways in the game. And it really, the bottom line was that, the things I saw, and I do think they will change goalies. I don't know if they'll do it for game 2, but I think they'll probably do it for game 3 if they lose again.
It'll probably be game 3. I tend to agree with you on that.
Because the other thing that, that you have to remember about Bob is that he does react well sometimes to being given votes of confidence when he necessarily shouldn't be. This is something I've seen about him in his career. And the best example I can say about that is the series where, Columbus takes out Tampa in 4 games.
Yeah.
Bob goes down 3-0 in the first game, and they keep him in there, which was to me was always they kept him in. I think they'll draw off that experience. That Zito obviously was there, and everybody knows it was there. But I think that they'll draw off that experience probably for one more game. I don't know if it was me, I wouldn't, but I think that they will. There was something that was really interesting in this game though that I did not take into account. Is that Tampa was giving up the puck a lot defensively. Like they made a lot of bad defensive clears. And it was created by Florida. I mean, Florida's forechecking was amazing, and they're spitting, but man, they gave the puck away a lot. Like there were times when the puck was just aimlessly thrown through the middle by McDonough. McDonough had a bad game. I thought he was I thought he had a bad game. I really did. I really do.
You kidding me physically? Did you see what he did to a former?
I saw what he was doing. No, I'm not taking away from what his hitting and all this stuff. But man,
everybody.
He was hitting everybody in place.
I thought McDonough. I thought McDonough was their best defenseman.
No, can we track giveaways? I mean, literally, is there a place that tracks giveaways? Because he must have had.
Yeah, I'll look it up. Hold on.
I mean, I know those things aren't always right, but I honestly saw 3 times where he basically just fed the point men of the Florida Panthers, with and I don't know if those count as giveaways or not. I'm not sure what a giveaway is even in the NHL anymore, but. There were a lot of giveaways.
According to the summary of the game, McDonough had 1 giveaway.
No, I see that's ridiculous. But
Sergachev
I don't know what a giveaway is.
Had 3 giveaways.
Yeah, Sergachev is very loose with the puck.
The Sergachev, but no, and this was a general thing, and to me, this kind of echoed the old Blackhawks team that was that defensively. That was their problem, that they would give the puck away sometimes. Just they didn't love that. The thing on the Blackhawks was always put the puck in deep because Keith and Seabrook and those guys, they don't want to turn their backs. They don't want to have to face the boards, bring the puck back out. They don't want to turn their backs. They want to make plays and bring it straight out. But when they turn their back, they're going to get hit and they're going to pass the puck up quickly, and they did.
Probably because Rafi Torres was going to slam him head first into the wall.
Even though I picked Tampa in 7, Florida's going to have a hard time getting it to 7 because, as an example, without Barclay Goodrow, you had Ross Colton in there, who I talked about in our preview, and he almost scored a goal. He had a great shot.
He was very physical, had a really good game too. He's a really annoying player in that game. I mean, they have so many good players. Tampa's got so many good players, but so does Florida. I mean, Florida's got some players that are just crazy.
Tampa had 12 giveaways in the game, and this shows how many. Andrei Vasilevsky had a giveaway.
Yeah,
I've ever seen a goalie have a giveaway.
There you go. There you're sort of seeing maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just saw the couple times that McDonough did something like that. But I was surprised from him because he's not usually a giveaway machine at all. But I felt like there were some things. I definitely saw Sergachev's for sure. Hedman must.
Yeah, but Funky's right. If you're playing a number 1 or number 2 defensive role, and you're playing 20-25 minutes in the playoffs, you're going to have giveaways.
And
Well, to me, the giveaways that matter though for defensemen are in their own zone. when you're trying to get the puck out of your zone. That inability to clear the puck. I wish there was a statistic on that because that's where I saw that's where the Florida Panthers had a big edge.
Just because it's so glaring, I just have to mention this. You look at the hits in the game, and Cirelli had 6 hits. Noel Acciari had 6 hits. Radko Gudas, 11 hits.
No, he's crazy. He's just nuts.
Yeah, but again, that's home cooking.
Yes,
it is. But he is nuts, and
I saw some really good hits from Radko, but that's home cooking, man.
It didn't even seem like a big hitting game for Gudas in terms of what I've seen in the past.
No, I mean, listen, if he wants to put a hip check or something on you, we'd be rewinding that and watching it again.
I mean, the problem with all of that, and the problem with Florida playing the way they're playing, which is very aggressive and is that if the Lightning power play is going to be this deadly, that's going to affect the way the Panthers have to play eventually.
Yeah, of course.
So to me, like if I was to change a pick, I would be like, yeah, this is probably going to be more Tampa because just seeing Kucherov at his best again, and seeing what he does to the power play, like the game-winning goal.
Stamkos looked great too. He was controlling the puck in the corner, no problem.
Oh yeah, no, Stamkos looked great too. Obviously, they've been healthy for months, but the fact that they could easily control, having Point, Kucherov, Stamkos up front, is having him on the back. It's just ridiculous.
And by the way, that game-winning goal, the Braden Point breakaway, no one passing the puck.
No, I didn't see it.
Ryan McDonough.
Okay, I'm not trying to sit there and say he was terrible, but honestly, I was noticing. If you watch the third period of that game again, you'll see it. Like there are glaring, like there's one time he rolls the puck up the boards like so slowly that a player that was changing on the Panthers has a chance to skate all the way in from his bench. Like it was kind of crazy. Like there was just not.
He's like anybody else. He's prone to making some mistakes, but my God, I thought he had a really solid game. I actually felt like he was a leader and set the tone. That's what I felt like.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm not just. Maybe I'm wrong. I just noticed it.
I think you noticed some things. I'm not going to say you're wrong because
probably there were, like Mike could point out, there was a lot of giveaways, and probably for whatever reason, whenever they were happening, when I was seeing them, it was like somehow McDonald was tied into it. But there was a lot of. I mean, the Panthers just the thing that they have. If you're going to beat them, by the way, this year when teams beat the Panthers, they beat them like they beat them last night. They beat them late. Because the Panthers have been a very good team at coming back, and if the Panthers had another couple minutes in that game, it would be interesting to see what would have happened. Because obviously, by beating them late, the Panthers almost that play at the very end where that was unbelievable.
Hornquist almost tied the game late, which was
incredible. Hornquist, there was no way if he hit the net that Vasilevsky saves that. I mean, it's a hard shot for him to have any accuracy with because it's like a desperation. But it was like such a cannon. And at such a fast speed that Hornquist that was impressive. Hornquist was impressive again, like as he always is. But obviously, I mean, what can you say about Huberdeau? He was just amazing. He's off the charts. Barkov, those guys. I mean, they really.
Barclay Grujar didn't even play. Like he was hurt.
Yeah, no, they have such talent on Tampa.
They got a lot of guys, man.
It's just nuts. It is nuts. So looking now, what time is it now?
We got 5-6 minutes.
Yeah, let's do 5 minutes here. So looking into tonight's games, then and taking into account what we've seen, like a little bit.
No, nothing on the Vancouver game. Nothing. No, I'm good with it.
Okay. Looking at what we've seen tonight, going into tonight, I'm still going with Carolina, but I am really calling this series a lot closer than I thought it was, based on the fact like what we've seen so far about how these teams playing each other so often have something on each other. And, I still think Carolina is going to win this series, but I think it's going to be closer than,
Well, here's my issue. Okay. And I've watched a lot of Nedeljkovic. I've seen him in juniors. I've seen him for the U.S. team. I saw him in an outdoor game in Detroit when they were playing during the Winter Classic. They played this one at Comerica, and I watched him there. I like the guy's mental makeup. I like a lot of what he does, but this is a whole different thing that he's ever played in. And he's not the biggest goalie, so there is that option to go high. And he's very athletic, but I'm telling you, this is the issue, okay? We see that both goalies, even Reimer to some degree, have good numbers with Carolina, and that's because they can play a lockdown D, right?
Right.
But if they slip up even just a little bit on defense with Nedeljkovic in there, that could be a problem. And I'm not saying it wouldn't be a problem for Mrazek. I think it might be a problem for any of their goalies because they really are a team that's living off of that defensive system more than their goaltending. That's the worry you have.
So that's Nedeljkovic exactly their starter, right? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, he's starting. Yeah.
Well, they're still sort of couching it and still unless Brindamore has come out in the last few minutes.
NHL.com had him as the starter, so.
Yeah, I mean
they're not prone to hyperbole. They're not allowed.
Well, they were. The report was they might start.
Yeah, he's starting.
Yeah, no, and I actually, of all the goalies though, I think you might as well. I mean, I think I would rather go with him. He's your goalie.
Personally, I actually would start Mrazek to see what he can do. I don't think it's a great thing to start a first-year goalie right off in game one of the playoffs because if you're prone to screw-ups. As a goalie, as a young goalie, you're going to do it then. Whereas even a Mrazek may be able to settle into a game early and then just kind of screw it up as it goes on. But I think, but it's hard for a young goalie to sort of settle into a big game like this.
It can be for sure. The question is, like we've said, I mean, with Brendamore's a great matching coach, and that'll be big. I mean, to me, this all comes down to like, is Ryan Johansson and Steve are they going to show up? Are Duchesne and Johansson going to show up? If
all I know is I'm shooting high all night long, and I'm also going to I'm going to try and spread out their defense. I'm going to this way because I know they're going to have that log jam in front of the net. And I'm going to try and score those impossible angle goals, and I'm going to keep shooting them on the young goalie and hope that Nedeljkovic lets up one or two of those. That's what you have to do. Shoot it off his back. You do things that veterans do. Nashville has veterans, so
the Predators are very good at that. And this is another thing I liked about the Panthers game is they just put it on net all the time. Everything. I mean, the Panthers were the leading shooting team, like took more shots than anybody else this year by quite a good margin. They just throw the puck on net all the time. The Panthers and the Predators do the same thing. They also, when they're at their best, skilled or not skilled, just throw the puck on net.
Mike and I did vote on the Masterton. I have no problem revealing my votes on the show. I didn't do it online.
Okay.
But I did vote for Oscar Lindblom for the number one. I went with Colin Blackwell, the Rangers, for number two, because I really did feel like this guy's been kicking around a long time, and that is what the award's supposed to be about too, besides coming back if you're injured or playing if you have a disease or something. It's all a part of it. Someday they may tighten up the qualifications, but until then, and I put Danny DeKeyser third because I know how bad this guy's back was, and he really tried to play. He wasn't a guy that really wanted to be out of action. So those were the three I had.
I also went with Lindblom, number one. Number two, I went with Jack Campbell because Campbell's like the second, like Blackwell.
Blackwell had kicked around a long time.
The ECHL, AHL, then he got his chance with LA, then gets traded to Toronto, and now he's on the verge of being the number one going into the playoffs. It sounds like they guarantee he's going to start game one and probably more than that. And third, I selected Patrick Marlow for because I don't know whether he's going to qualify for any other award, and I think he should be rewarded for the long and great career that he has had.
Good picks. Those are good picks overall. I agree. I mean, you can't.
There's a lot of guys that are worthy of it. The one thing it's funny. One time, and I've had a few players tell me this, but Jean Rattel of all players was so happy about winning that award. And this is a very decorated guy. He's won Stanley Cup. Yeah. He's won scoring titles. And he talked about the Masterton with me without me prompting him. So that it does show that sometimes some of these awards really do mean a lot more to the players than even, the fans.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that award particularly does. I mean, the players who've gone through that are appreciative of things that have happened in their world, like.
I think that's what it is. They're sort of like Rattel came back from a broken leg, right?
Yeah.
So it was sort of like, hey, they noticed that,
Yeah, you appreciate things more when you've had to go through something like that. You just appreciate stuff more. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Take it easy, folks. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Enjoy tonight's games.
I almost voted for Zach Dalby. Sorry.
There you go. That's a good one. Enjoy tonight's games. We'll be staying up late, I have a feeling. Talk to you soon.